Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our very first Jamf Breakfast Club of 2022. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Aaron Webb, and I'm the Product Marketing Manager for Education here at Jamf. Prior to joining Jamf, I used to work in schools in East London. I've travelled all over the world, and I've got a great friend with me today. Joining us from Showbie is Abdul Chauhan. Welcome, Abdul. Just before I introduce you, I just want to say how Showbie is going to be part of a very special learning trail that we're going to have at BET this year. So the reason we didn't have a January Breakfast Club is because we was meant to be at BET. It got shifted back to March. So we would actually be at BET on the 23rd to the 25th of March. And we're actually going to have a learning trail, which includes Showbie, Trilby TV, and explain everything. So if you're in London or you're coming to BET, come and stop by our stand and also the Showbie stand along with others, and join us on our learning trail and see what we do together to empower student success. So without further ado, let's introduce our guest for today. Abdul, welcome to the Jamf Breakfast Club.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Wonderful to be here and really looking forward to the chat.
Excellent. It's great to actually, I chat with you at various different events that I see you at. We've known each other for a while. So viewers are actually going to capture what we probably talk about at various different events live today. So it's great to have you here. Super excited about the chat that we're going to have. Do you just want to give the viewers a little bit of a background into yourself and how you got to Showbie today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of started off as a high school chemistry teacher in northwest of England and in Bolton, and then was part of a leadership team for a number of years, and then for a short while took on the job of principal CEO for a trust, and then 2014 went independent and started doing a lot of work with schools and organizations in different parts of the world. I think the invitations to exotic and remote locations was kind of too tempting. And I kind of started my journey that way. And as we kind of developed like digital strategies for different organizations and schools and so on, Showbie was always a feature in a lot of those kind of implementations, having used it myself and implemented it in a number of different schools. So yeah, then the opportunity came up for the vice president role at Showbie to kind of look at strategies for large scale organizations and so on. It kind of brought all the things that I really love doing, and here I am as vice president of learning at Showbie.
Great. What a journey. And I'm a huge fan of Showbie, the value it brings. For those people who are tuning in who don't know what Showbie is, could you just give a description about what Showbie does and the value it brings to the schools that obviously implement it?
Absolutely. So the thing about Showbie is quite often people kind of mistake it for a learning management system, right? And for me, it's quite a unique product in that it's not a learning management system. It's completely focuses on assessment and feedback. And it focuses on one thing, and it does that one thing really, really well in a very simple and easy and intuitive way. And the other thing is that it has a degree of innovation with feedback that uses like digital voice, and the way it does annotations, the fact that it handles all sorts of different kind of file types and all of that. Whatever kind of ecosystem that you might be using, Apple, Google, Microsoft, it's kind of universal. It's part of what I kind of sometimes describe as the Rolls-Royce model, where students should be able to use anything and be able to have that kind of connection with their teacher. And based on a lot of like research from John Hattie and so on, it very simply allows that kind of the ability to close the feedback loop very, very easily. It's used by about 3 million people, 3 million teachers from all around the world. There's kind of very large scale countries and organizations that use it as well. But yeah, I mean, it's basically essentially it handles assessment and feedback.
Yeah, and that's so important. And you said there two words, or three if you include the and, simple and intuitive. Which is so important. Like teachers have always got another thing to do, and it's something that we very much align with, being Jamf, and trying to help remove those barriers, make it super simple for teachers, students to use Apple devices. Showbie obviously extends that and makes it super easy to do that feedback loop that as you've been talking about. What steps would you say? So, are schools looking to implement this? They're trying to transform their vision, coming out the other side of the pandemic. They got a time to reset. This is a perfect time for schools to actually rethink what their vision is going to be. How would you sort of give them the ingredients to approach this with a Showbie mindset?
I think when schools look at their vision with respect to learning, with respect to technology, and this might even apply to multi-academy trusts as well. I think what's really kind of important is that, first of all, the vision needs to be revisited every so often. The reason why technology changes, tools changes, context and circumstances sometimes change as well. So that's a healthy thing to be able to do. But for me, if we're going to start looking at the ingredients, then we really have to look at the DNA of learning. What are the things that we're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis that teachers are going to do in the classroom every single day? And certainly when it comes to technology, it can't be something that we just use once in a blue moon or we use at certain times of the year and so on. It's the day-to-day transaction that happens between teachers and students with respect to knowledge, with respect to kind of feedback and learning and so on. So for me, I've quite often been kind of quoted as saying this as well, but devices, I've always said they're like taps, right? They're shiny, you turn them on and water comes out. But the vision has to include the plumbing, the stuff that's in the background that people don't see. And for me, understanding what does feedback look like in an environment where every student has access to a device. What does feedback look like when you've empowered teachers with devices? What does feedback look like when they can access that at home as well? What does learning look like when it can be captured and made available 24/7 for students to go back and kind of do recall and retrieval practice and so on? And also assessment, right? Because assessment doesn't necessarily have to be sitting in the classroom, filling in an exam paper. Of course, there's lots of different kinds of assessments. But one thing that technology, certainly Showbie, Socrative bring to the table and needs to be part of the vision is, what kind of technology are you implementing that's really going to reduce workload for teachers? There's a lot of automated stuff that can happen that can reduce kind of errors and so on. And there's lots of amazing things out there that people can use to really kind of, streamline that flow. So for me, the DNA of learning, assessment, feedback, teaching, and how we impart knowledge, those three things need to be kind of embedded as part of the vision. That's transformative, and that's not just translational. It's not just, hey, we had it on a piece of paper, now it's on a screen. It's got to be something that allows us to access this and do this in a way in which we were just simply not able to do it in the past. And that really needs to be incorporated in the vision. And of course, like you said earlier, that simple and reliable element has to be there. And I think for me, that's the thing that Showbie Socrative kind of bring to the table. Like 2 days, 3 days, you've got a whole school kind of using it and embedded, and it quickly becomes DNA of that kind of learning experience.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I couldn't agree more. I would also add in that from our side, as a Jamf side, we need to make sure that the IT admins or whoever's managing that technology makes it super simple for teachers to actually deliver on their vision, because sometimes that can be a blocker. The technology, not being able to just power up a device and have the apps on there that you need, can sometimes restrict teachers, cause them to fail and actually say, I'm not going to try that again. So definitely this partnership that we're working on together with Jamf Showbie is for me super, super powerful for schools to succeed with that ingredients and success.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, Aaron, I think quite often it's quite key that we understand that empowering teachers is just as important, if not more, than just putting devices in the hands of students. I know like schools and school leaders put significant energy into professional development and so on. I've been a big fan of kind of like weekly professional development that's part of the school calendar rather than inset days. I know we've done that in previous organizations I've worked in. So, we didn't have inset days every Friday afternoon. It was at the time, it was professional development. And, it wasn't just a case of somebody standing up at the front. It was really hands-on, teachers sharing best practice. It wasn't even a case of other people coming in from outside. It was all schools have really good stuff that's going on, and it gave teachers an opportunity to amplify, sit back, and kind of really understand, and then plan for the following week to try and use that and reflect on that. So you're kind of continuously building this learning. That empowerment of teachers is really, really quite essential. And I think Jamf, I know firsthand the role that's played in managing that, right? Because teachers don't want to be managing, hey, back in the day, it was like, I need an app on my device, and my God, that was a whole kind of process, right? And now, you can just tap and just download whatever you want. It's all there, right? You can self-service, tap on it, I need this, and you've got it. And that kind of flexibility, simplicity makes the whole process really easy, and the teachers focus less, kind of ironically in some ways, focus less on the technology and more on learning, although they're actually using technology as a medium to deliver that learning.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I think that professional development piece is so important. Some schools often forget that, and as you say, bring someone in. But I'm a big fan of drip feeding that, hands-on, like learn together, fail together, and sort of develop together as a team. Because people will make mistakes and things don't always work, but that's part of the learning journey that they're going on, and empowering the teachers so important. And as you said there about Jamf and self-service and being able to tap an app, that's super useful for the teachers as well, the students as well, because they can just choose an app that best meets their needs. Not all learners learn the same. So if they want to use a different app, they've got the power to do that. And Jamf should just make that technology disappear, and it should just be about the learning. So 100% agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, we're at a stage now, I think, that it's like you walk into a classroom, like nobody's talking about the tables and chairs that are in the classroom, right? It's just there, right? And I think technology kind of needs to reach that position. And in many organizations, it's just there. Children know when to use it, when not to use it. You have the relevant restrictions in place. You have, the kind of, I suppose, self-regulation that is so important today, that students need to learn, and even adults need to learn, in terms of how they use technology and so on. And I think that's part of the experience. And the earlier students begin to kind of embrace that and get taught how to kind of self-regulate with respect to technology, the better it's going to be for them, not just from a learning perspective, but from a general lifestyle kind of approach as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said about table and chairs, obviously just being a fixed feature in the classroom that people don't even acknowledge. But how have you ever been into schools where you've actually seen that completely transformed because they've implemented the right devices, they've got the right plumbing, as you say, behind the scenes to make it work seamlessly, and then they've got Showbie? What are they sort of doing that other schools aren't? How are they going that next step further?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's some really interesting things here. I've been to a lot of schools where it has been right, and the vision's been there, and it's continuously being challenged and revisited and so on. But I think what for me becomes kind of quite interesting is when you speak to the students in those schools. You speak to them, you ask them about their learning and what they're doing, and they'll pick up the device, they'll show you the kinds of things that they're doing on there, what's gone on, they'll show you what's happened in the past, they'll talk about feedback, they'll talk about how they've responded to that. You'll see in the same class students responding in different ways. So someone might have left a digital voice note, someone might have typed a document up and uploaded that. They've chosen a method and a way that works for them. Others might have kind of recorded a video and sent that to the teacher and so on. So that's when they're not talking about the technology. They're kind of talking about the actual learning process. Oh, my teacher sent me this, and the teacher recorded a screen recorded kind of example and sent it to me, and I really understand that now. I can watch that whenever I want, and so on. So for me, that perspective actually becomes kind of quite powerful, and it's been really kind of thought through. So, for example, one approach that I've seen, which is kind of pretty impressive, very simple, but very effective and invisible. The technology is invisible. When the teachers are kind of teaching their concepts and new ideas, the whole thing's being recorded on the likes of Explain Everything. Dead simple. Just hit the record button, got the slides on, I'm annotating, I'm explaining. The whole thing's being captured. And then that gets exported straight into Showbie. The kids have access to that. You know, the concept of I didn't understand that last bit, what the teacher said, or that bit in the middle. Hey, I've now got that. You know, and it's my teacher, not a YouTube video. And I can go back and I can, so now, and we start thinking about memory and all the evidence base that kind of connects to that. Some people need to watch it twice. Some people need to watch. I stop and I have to take it in, and then I have to watch the next bit. So that's been there, and then you can see feedback. You know, the messiness of learning, right? You know, where somebody's understood something, the teacher's kind of picking up misconceptions, and you're kind of seeing that dialogic conversation going on around learning, and built into that is kind of assessment, right? Which through Socrative and so on. So what you see is a real life kind of learning journey.
Yeah.
And you can see the way each student, and it's personalized, where they're learning the same thing. The two students sat next to each other are learning it in completely different ways, and the teacher's able to facilitate that without having to walk around and kind of, you know, engage with each student. I mean, that happens, and the teachers do that in the classroom, and face-to-face stuff happens as well. But actually, what technology is providing is that really personalized approach for each student, and giving them the kind of empowerment to be able to present their learning in a way that suits them. So I have seen that in schools. I'm seeing more and more schools kind of move into that kind of approach. I'm beginning to kind of think like that. And again, you know, it's the term that I'm using at the moment with many organizations. It's the move from translation to transformation. What can we do now that we weren't able to do in the past? And that will include time savings, cost savings, operational efficiencies, you know, the use, the application of research and what we've learned from research and what research is telling us, but then to use technology to kind of further give it efficiencies and so on. So that's the kind of thing that I'm seeing being done quite well in many organizations.
Yeah, and as you said, all this can be done anywhere. You think of like a teacher no longer has to carry 30 books home with them to go and mark, or they don't have to sit there and wait like late at night in their classroom marking. They can actually, and this is the power, as you said, of making sure you invest in your teachers, giving them the device as well as giving like your students the device. They can obviously use their iPad and just give this feedback quite easily from anywhere, and they don't have to carry all those books home and mark. And you see that really good learning journey that, as you described.
Absolutely. Aaron, I think the thing is that you know, the Education Endowment Foundation, and a lot of educators will know this. There's a table that they produced some years ago, and it was kind of like, you know, this intervention will get you this many extra months of learning and so on. And there were some interventions that had very little impact on extra learning. There were others that were kind of really powerful and had big impact. It was different for primary, it was different for secondary, and so on. One of the things that was kind of interesting there was that parental engagement piece. Yeah. And I think that, you know, COVID has gone some way to kind of getting parents to kind of see how their children learn. In some cases, it's been really great experiences for them, but there's a lot of parents that have kind of just like, what the heck is this? It's not my thing, and so on. But I think one of the things that we've seen with Showbie is that the fact that there's a kind of parental app that parents can hear and see and watch how the teacher presented that learning for their children, that functionality has empowered not just the teacher and the student, but also the parents at home. And, you know, I can't remember this calculation exactly, but if you count how many hours the children sit in front of the teacher face to face compared to how much time they actually spend at home over a whole year, the amount of time that they spend in front of the teacher is actually a very small percentage of the whole year. Most of the time they're at home. If we can empower parents to be able to access that content. They're able to watch the teacher's presentation. They're able to kind of learn for themselves of the language and how it's being taught. They're in a better position to support their children's learning. And I think that is really, really powerful. That kind of brings things on leaps and bounds. I'm not just talking about send 10 questions home for homework and the parent kind of nags the child to sit down and do those questions. I'm talking about the parent really kind of on the fly on their mobile devices, being able to watch something. Okay, this is how the teacher has taught long division. I understand that now. I'm in a better position to support my child, right? Rather than that, that age-old kind of conversation that happens at home. Oh, we don't do it like that. The teacher taught it to us in a different way. So I think the whole parent, teacher, student triumvirate, I think that whole thing completely kind of changes.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that's apologies. Someone's just started digging up the road in front of me. So if you hear a bit of background noise, I'm going to keep my my voice to a minimum. It's something that we align with as Jamf as well. We not only just obviously support the management of the devices, we have a parent app, we have a teacher app. We allow parents to be able to manage those devices at home. If a school device is going home and they want to be able to restrict that device for a period of time, turn the camera off and just allow Showbie for an hour while they're sort of like want to go through some work at home. That's something that we also offer as well. So I really support that whole teacher, student, parent sort of triangle that empowers student success. And even just an insight. My daughter comes home, she's 6. I said, what did you do today? Nothing, didn't do anything. Just having that insight to be able to see what goes on in the classroom, because a parent would never normally see that book, that mark in that feedback loop. So it's that insight into the classroom. It's so powerful. You also mentioned cost savings, like not having to stand there at a printer and print out loads of different copies of things. Like that's huge for schools. They might have to lay out for a device, but actually they've saved so much on the long run in printer costs.
And that's a significant cost, right? Because again, when we're talking about vision and workflow, if you have technology and certainly iPads in a classroom or a tablet device, camera on the back, your ability to kind of take a photo of something and upload it becomes kind of a really simple thing to do. Literally, that device is also your photocopier. Now, if we then begin to think about, yes, most schools will have and teachers will have lots of resources that are worksheets, past exam papers, PDFs, so on. That kind of content you could throw up online, and students can access it, annotate, write, whatever they want to do with that. But I think where this plays a significant role, the whole kind of capturing photo, is the handwritten stuff. So there's a school that I've been working with in Dubai, Ajman Academy. We were working with their leadership team. They've, they were creating like their kind of feedback policy. And of course, final exams are pen to paper still, right? That's still there. So therefore, children need to write. They need to put pen to paper. And quite often there's this misconception that if a school is using technology or they have a one-to-one program, children won't be writing anymore and so on. I think like with the right implementation and certainly with the way in which Showbie works, I think the amount of writing that a student can do can be increased even more. And the reason is this, that actually you write pen to paper, but the submission of that work is literally capturing it. And there's a scan feature, so it just scans multiple pages and all of that, automatically turns it into a PDF, uploads it, and then the teachers can annotate. And the beauty is, and this is where the transformation bit comes in, is that they can annotate with voice. It's not just writing things in, right? They can tap, speak, hey, this bit is not right. Hey, this needs to be like this. Hey, this needs to be, and the students can respond as well. So the speed at which that feedback loop can be closed and the ease at which it can be closed is far superior to taking 30 books home to mark. And because it's technology, there's kind of like all these additional kind of wizardry that techies put in, things like quick marking feature, right? It kind of, you just tap the next student and their page appears in front of you, mark it, tap the next one and the next one appears and so on. So none of this even flipping through books and so on. And it does that. And, any grades that you give, obviously all that connection with mark books and all of that. But my point is that with one school, certainly here in the UK, I remember we did this with a couple of teachers in year 6. This was we actually measured this, and we saw a reduction in printing of 75%. And that wasn't because the aim of the game was to kind of see how much printing we can be reduced by. It was just something we measured before and after, and we were able to kind of see. And Showbie, and what I like about the Showbie team is that they're actually running trials, right? So they're not telling schools, hey, just get this. It's important that the schools have an approach. There's evidence to say that this is going to make a difference for you in the long run. And one thing that's really good is that Showbie's kind of running these quantitative and qualitative kind of trials in organizations to be able to see what's the impact on cost savings, on photocopying and printing, and multiply that across your school, your organization, your mat, and be able to kind of see the impact of that. But also on things like, how long does it take for a teacher to mark a set of books or mark a set of exam papers, on paper compared to actually giving feedback like this. Now, in some cases, some teachers have reported it takes the same amount of time. However, the quality of feedback that the teacher's been able to give is far superior because they're using their voice, and it's that kind of verbal feedback that develops relationship and has a more meaningful connection with students. So I think there's a big area there, for schools to be kind of explore.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's not even without touching accessibility features, anything else that the technology can bring to students. And we actually had the last session that we done before Christmas, we actually looked at Caligo, which was actually using technology to learn how to write using the device. As you say, that's still super important, but that development there and this technology can enhance that. There's also, you're talking about the ability to scan a document, to use voice feedback. Like, is there a difference between which device you choose that enables you to do that so much easier than another device? So say, for example, we had a conversation previously about mobile versus portable devices. Like, what's the difference, and how does that enhance what the school's going to be able to do long term?
Yeah, and this is just kind of experience having worked with schools that have implemented portable devices. By portable devices, I'm talking about laptops, so whether they're Chromebooks or Macs or whatever it is, but a laptop type device. And when I'm talking about a mobile device, I'm talking about something that's actually mobile, like a tablet with a camera on the back, like an iPad. For me, I do feel that there's a difference. And, there might be now some devices that kind of blur that boundary. But I think having that camera on the back and being able to scan documents and upload, I think that's definitely one element that you can do very easily and changes the workflow of an organization, and potentially even things like cost savings and so on. There's definitely impact there. But I think there are other things as well. So like having access to things like the App Store, where you see new tools come up on board and teachers can just test it out and see what it's like, see if it's going to work, and so on. I just think that there's a lot more kind of opportunity there. And, I know on the iPad, certainly there are schools that use the whole Google infrastructure. And hey, works really well. We can kind of use this super easy and so on. Or there are schools using iPads, tablets with the Microsoft infrastructure. And hey, that's been kind of quite successful, and they've been able to use all of that. And there are schools that are using a mixture of everything. They'll have tablet, they might use some Microsoft stuff. Actually, some kids want to use some Google Docs for collaboration, or hey, we're going to use Keynote to do some animation, or mock-up of an app or something like that, or augmented reality. That's a whole area that's kind of coming up that is actually can be quite meaningful. So these things are kind of very much moving towards a mobile device. Like mobile devices are supporting everything, whereas kind of laptop type devices, that functionality of just taking a snap, kind of throwing up AR models and stuff like that and interacting with them or creating them even now. There's a bunch of tools that I've kind of recently seen that are really powerful. They're kind of allowing children to actually build models, augment them in real life and kind of interact with them and so on. And I think that kind of creativity is kind of on a whole new level. So I do feel that there is a difference. I think that, a lot of schools that have gone down the one-to-one route quite often empower teachers, certainly teachers, with both, because there is a place for laptops and sitting down and actually I need to type out a big document, I need to create this, I need to do X, Y, and Z and so on. But in the classroom where you need to be mobile, you need to be moving around, you're collecting evidence, you're kind of just speaking into something or speaking with students and you're showing them, or you want to kind of, throw your device up onto a screen and be able to annotate and use it like an interactive whiteboard. That's where kind of tablets really kind of kick in. Yeah. And I think that they're a better investment than things like interactive whiteboards, right? Because I was just at Trust the other day and we were speaking about interactive whiteboards, a fantastic organization, Leo Academy Trust down in London. And we had a really great conversation, but, we were just talking about like the expense of things like interactive whiteboards. And if you start looking at return on investment, like this is how much you've spent, how much are you actually using it for it to come back? And if you start looking at infrastructure that is just sat in the school and not being used, it then begins to get really quite expensive. And for those organizations that are allowing their children to kind of take devices home, they'll also see that actually learning does continue. You start the number of schools that have been using Showbie. The moment it's been introduced in an iPad environment, in a one-to-one environment, immediately one of the first things they kind of come back with is, hey, our children were on it last night. They were in discussions. They were submitting stuff. They continued to work on projects. They were in the group figuring out this problem and so on. So that ability to kind of expand time beyond school hours is also something that is definitely worth considering.
Yeah, that's great. This this time's gone super quick. Like, we're going to take some questions. Just wanted to highlight what you said about interactive whiteboards. I only thinking about this during the pandemic. How many of those actually went home? None. And how many were used when the schools were shut? None. But if you've got that on a device going home to students and they can access it anytime, anywhere, that's super powerful. Paul, hello, Paul. Great to see that you've tuned in. You've put in a great comment that I just want to sort of highlight here is voice feedback is so powerful. Quick, easy, and works and still looks like it belongs to the pupil and not covered in teacher graffiti.
So powerful. That is, Paul, that is so true. Hope you're well. Absolutely. I mean, I'm a big advocate of verbal feedback. It was really interesting to see the Education Endowment Fund's kind of publication, or I think it was 6 months ago or something, on the whole concept, on the whole idea of feedback. And they actually they've kind of, I suppose, differentiated between written feedback and verbal feedback. For those schools and those schools that I've visited and those schools that I've worked with and those teachers that use this, that are kind of there on a day-to-day basis, that are using verbal feedback, there are lots of other things that are coming through as well. One is the feedback. Yes, that's meaningful and so on. But the relationships between student and teacher become really quite powerful. The fact that parents can hear the feedback and they can support that becomes quite powerful. And remember, feedback is a two-way thing, right? It's not just from teacher to student. Students can respond to that feedback. And that's when it becomes kind of really powerful. I did a recent kind of live stream with John Hattie, and one of the things when we were talking about verbal feedback and how technology kind of allows you to access that, one of his term was you can hear the thinking. So quite often, children are trying to solve a problem and so on, and we're trying to figure it out from the working out and so on. But with that verbal feedback element, you can actually hear the thinking. The type of activity that we can set students can be significantly different. Okay, they're solving a math problem, but if you just say to them, add a voice note and explain how you did this, and they're able to articulate that, you're suddenly kind of getting a whole new set of skills about them being articulate and confident and being able to kind of see that coming through in their explanations as well. So I think it's hugely, hugely powerful.
Great. And we're pushed for time. So there's two great questions that have come in, one from Matthew and one from Jonathan, that we could kind of cover together, I think, because it talks about Google and Microsoft. So in terms of how does Showbie differ to OneNote? What a school who's using Microsoft and sort of Teams, or a school that's gone down the Google route and using Google Classroom, how does that work with Showbie? Is there obviously a place for both? And what value does Showbie bring over those other platforms that schools have probably embedded those during the pandemic, and now they're sort of looking at other tools to see how they can go one step further?
Great question. You know, the way Showbie works is it kind of sits alongside your Google infrastructure or your Microsoft infrastructure. What Showbie is allowing you to do is to kind of really focus on the assessment and feedback element. Okay. So what kinds of things does it bring to the table? Number one, it will allow you to kind of upload any kind of file type in there. And that's kind of quite key. So you're not just looking at Google Docs and so on. You can export a Google Doc in there. They can use it collaboratively, or if the students download it, they can kind of have their own version of that then becomes their own. You can import files from Google as well, or from Microsoft and so on. I think the way annotation works is really quite powerful because it's time stamped. You can put emojis on there. Now, I'm not saying emojis from a fun perspective. Actually, now schools are building in feedback policies that have emojis that describe what that means. So it just saves the teacher time. So for example, if it's an even better if, it might be footprints or next steps and so on. So you can build a good quality feedback policy. And we've got access to those. If people want to kind of know more about that, get in touch with me. I'm happy to share an example of this. It kind of really focuses on that assessment piece. The other thing is that it's all in one place. And I know that we don't do things for the sake of inspection, but from an ease perspective, if principals, senior leaders, teachers wanted to kind of see where the learning for one assignment, the full learning journey with the feedback and how the teacher presented and all the assessment data pertaining to that, it's all in one place. So a lot of schools that have the Google infrastructure are still using Showbie alongside it, or they have Microsoft Teams and they're still using Showbie alongside it. And the reason for that is because it's super, super simple and it's in one place. And hey, if inspection does happen, somebody walks in, you can kind of see 6 months ago, this is what the teacher said. This is how the teacher presented. This is how the students responded. And you can actually hear the voices and the annotations, and the whole thing is archived. I think the other thing that's really powerful, and this is from an efficiency perspective, if teachers create their lessons and their assignments at the end of the academic year, they can just copy the whole thing. It creates a new class with all their resources and structure and all their kind of like tutorials, and all of that is kind of there. And that's, again, something that teachers find really, really useful. Obviously, with the integration of Socrative, the automatic kind of reporting mechanism, it creates a report, sends it to each student. That's not, or that it's completely automated and the students would get a report. Parents can see that. So it kind of closes that whole assessment and feedback loop, and it's all in one place. The single sign-on with Microsoft, the single sign-on with Google. So it kind of makes it incredibly easy. But it really is designed to sit alongside, your Google infrastructure. And you'll find schools that are using Google and they use Showbie alongside it. You'll find schools that are using Teams, and I can see some of the things that are coming through on the comments as well. You'll find schools that are using Microsoft and they're using Showbie alongside it as well. And of course, we're now also seeing not just primary schools, but secondary schools and even further education colleges doing some pretty amazing stuff with Showbie alongside both types of infrastructures.
Yeah, it's something that we come up with as well as obviously managing Apple devices. We integrate with Microsoft, we integrate with Google as well. And so go and check out those integrations. Schools have very much got those infrastructures in place, and we can actually integrate with them to help them with their Apple experience. And that's something that we do with Jamf. We do as Jamf and Showbie very well. We can actually, through the Jamf Teacher app, help facilitate that with app config. So check out the integrations that we've got with Microsoft and Google as well, and obviously the marketplace and linking in with Showbie. Thank you very much, John and Martin, for giving some of that commentary there about Microsoft and Showbie and Google and Showbie. I think that's fantastic. That's probably all we've got time for. But if you want to obviously continue this conversation, come down to Bet, because obviously we're going to be doing some presentations on the Showbie stand. Showbie going to be doing some presentations on our stand. We're hopefully going to get those recorded. So if you are not coming to London on the 23rd to the 25th of March, we can obviously try and get those to you, or you can sign up and see them on demand afterwards. But obviously we would love to have you come and see us in person. And me and Abdul, we could probably chat for hours and hours. We had limited time today, but if you want to come and join us and extend this conversation or share what you've been doing, we'd love to hear from it. If you've got any further questions, you can reach out to us at uked@jamf.com, or visit showbie.com for any of the stuff that you want to sort of loop in and talk to Showbie and the team about. So Abdul, anything further from you?
Yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing you all. Come and see us on at the Bet stand as well. And of course, I'm doing a whole bunch of live streams as well. I've got one at 10 o'clock today with James Garnett doing from the EdTech demonstrator schools as well. So yeah, absolutely feel free and come and join us and speak to us as well. And
thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aaron, for having me on today.
No, thank you very much. And don't forget that our next session will be on the 3rd of March. They are the first Thursday of every month, apart from this one, which was an obscure one because Bet shifted. But 3rd of March is our next session. Registration details are coming soon. And if anyone who is watching thinking, actually, I've got a great story to share, I would love to be on the Jamf Breakfast Club, please reach out to us and we'd love to hear your story. So if you want to join us and share, please get in touch with us. We'll happily host you and would love to have these conversations and extend this out globally. This isn't just a UK thing. We've got people tuning in from all over the world. So thank you very much, Abdul, for sharing your knowledge and this fantastic conversation this morning. You're a very, very busy man. You've got another session today, so I'll tune in for that later on. But thank you very much for spending time with us this morning. Thank you for everyone who's joined and got up early or tuned in with a coffee and a croissant to watch us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Take care.